Hey guys, it's Danik, and I am back to talk about more language learning stuff. Yes, that's right. I'm here to share some more ideas of mine, my own personal philosophy about language learning. In today's video, I want to talk about practicing. I think practicing is really important, and it was just on my mind today to do a video about this. And so, I'm doing it. But yeah, one thing about practicing is, I like being. I'm glad that I'm doing this video about this because there are some things that even I have to remind myself of from time to time. I've been on this journey of learning languages for years now, and sometimes certain things do get away from me. I have to remind myself of certain things, and so that's part of the reason why I'm doing this video, so that even for myself, I can come back to this video and be like, oh yeah, that's right. Let me remember that. But one thing that I think is really important to say is that learning a language is not magic. It does not magically happen. It doesn't like happen overnight. You don't just wake up and everything's perfect and clear and you just feel great and you just run out your door and just have the perfect conversation with someone. It doesn't work like that. And I think the more you keep that in mind, it helps you to stay realistic in your goals. And the reason I want to emphasize that is because I think when you're learning a language, there's so much temptation to compare yourself to native speakers, and there's a lot of temptation to compare yourself to people who may have learned the language before you and they're further along, and so you're comparing yourself with them. You're comparing yourself with native speakers. You're watching programs and films and movies, and you're beating yourself up because you don't understand all that you want to understand. And so, I think it's important to remember that there's no magic involved in this. In order to learn a language, you have to make a commitment, and it's something that takes a lot of time. And someone in a language learning video said something to me, or said something in the video that I felt was just mind blowing, and I love it, and I still remember it to this day, which is that when you're learning a language, it's not a race, it is a marathon. So when you think about a race, it's like you're just feverishly trying to beat everyone else just so that you can have the prize. But when you think about a marathon, or running a marathon is all about consistency. It's all about discipline. It's all about establishing a set rhythm that will allow you to go long distances without getting tired. And all of that applies to your language learning journey. It is applied to my language learning journey. And yes, I've been learning Spanish for years now, and I feel much more confident in where I'm at. I feel much more confident in my ability to speak, and a lot of the fear has has left. And I think that's one thing that has probably made the biggest difference. When you first start learning a language, it's just so easy to forget what you wanted to say, or all of your vocabulary just escapes you. You're just panicking. You're frantically trying to put words together, remembering grammar, remembering things like that. But after you've been learning for so long and you've been consistent and the fear just really leaves. And I think the fear was the number one thing that kept me from really being able to understand native speakers, to be honest. And that was the biggest mystery when I first started learning um, my languages, which was like, oh my gosh, will I ever learn these languages? I keep freaking out every time I'm talking to a native person. I can't remember, or I said this incorrectly, or da 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 da. And then, once you just keep going and keep going and keep going, and after, months and years pass, then the fear begins to leave you. Your confidence level really grows. And so instead of just trying to like desperately hunt down the meaning of what people are telling you, it's almost like your brain stops going, 80 miles an hour, and it starts slowing down to 30 miles an hour, and then 20 miles an hour, and then 10 miles an hour. And so as your brain is slowly slowing down, you find that, you're able to tune in to what people are saying, because you don't have so much fear that you're having to balance as you're, trying to make sense of everything. So as your fear level goes down, that's when your understanding really begins to increase. And I think that's when your fluency really begins to soar, because you're not having to fight 10 different battles when you're engaging in conversation. You may still be struggling, and there might be things that you still don't understand, but your confidence is higher, and your comfort level has grown exponentially. And so when that fear level goes down, then it's almost like you can start engaging the logical side of your brain a little more, than focusing on just the panic and the fear and this and that. Now the logic is starting to take over, and so when you're hearing certain words, your brain is slowly starting to go like, okay, that goes there, that goes there, that goes there, that goes there. That person just said this, entonces voy a decir esto, or voy a decir esto. So fear, is definitely something that, I'm just going to throw that out as just, I didn't really mean to go to talk about fear immediately in this blog, but there you have it. But yeah, fear is definitely something that's very important. But going back to the idea of practicing, actually, it all works into one, honestly, because the more you practice, the more your fear level goes down, the more your confidence level goes up. But yeah, like I said, learning a language is not magic. It doesn't happen overnight. And another thing that's really important is you have to there are two different sources of motivation when you're doing anything, not just learning a language. On one side, you have the passion to do it. And then on the other side, you have the discipline to do it. And both of these can play different roles at different times. And so, one thing that I've learned now that I'm like X amount of years into learning Spanish is that, when I started Spanish, I was going off of a lot of passion. And passion is wonderful. Passion is great. It makes everything come alive and makes you, fills you with energy, and everything's electric, and you just can't wait for the next moment to practice and do all that stuff. But the problem with passion is that, just like any other emotion, it can fade, it can disappear, it can just be totally MIA. And so, and that's when discipline has to kick in. And so, just as I started in my journey with a lot of passion, and there was some discipline there as well, because I was really good at working through a lot of grammar books and getting down a lot of structure and vocabulary. I was really good at following up and having conversations with people and finding apps that would help me and all that stuff. But things happen. Life happens. Things change. You go through different seasons, and sometimes you're in season, sometimes you're out of season. And one thing that I've learned is that it's very important to be able to balance both. If you can't do something out of passion, learn how to do it out of discipline. And then sometimes you won't necessarily have to rely so much on discipline, because you might just get these little moments of passion and moments of energy and moments of emotion that just start coursing through you, and you just get up and you take off. But both of those are important. And so when you get excited about learning a language, that passionate phase just kicks in, and you just start sprinting. But you also have to learn that it has to be a balance of both. The love of something is what can keep you consistent at it. So if you just love it, that passion gives you that burst to start going. But even if you don't feel that passion all the time, you still have that love, you still want to do it. But what makes the difference at this point is, will your discipline kick in? Will you be able to anchor yourself so that you will continue to go on this marathon? Because the thing about it is, and one thing that I have learned, and I think this is really important, is that if you just commit to do it, you are going to make progress. Now, it has nothing to do with, oh, is this the progress that I wanted? No. Am I as far along as I want it to be? No. Okay, stop the complaining. Stop the moments of insecurity. Stop all the comparing to other people. The bottom line, fat truth, is that if you start and you just keep walking, you are going to learn, and you are going to develop fluency, and you are going to be able to use it in real life situations. Now, is it going to be perfect and the way you dreamed, and all these, and like glitter falling from the sky and people shouting your name and being like, wow, da, da, da. Is it going to happen like that? Probably not. Probably not. But that's why, it's really important to have realistic goals when you're learning language, and not just see yourself like, okay, well, I'm just going to be speaking perfectly within 3 months, and that's just how it's going to be. Well, what's going to happen is 3 months is going to pass, and then you're not going to be where you want to be, and then you're going to get discouraged, and that's going to be a hard hit to your discipline, and it's obviously going to be a hard hit to that passion. So, so it's just really important to remember that, if you just set set your mind to just keep going no matter what, you are going to get there. And I've been teaching English as just like a side job, off and on for the past year or so. And I have been really impressed. One thing I love about language learning is that I'm always learning something, whether I'm trying to learn something for myself, or if I'm just talking to other people, or if I'm teaching something to people who are trying to learn English. It's like I'm still learning something just by understanding how their journey compares to mine. And I've come across a lot of students who have been learning English all of their life. It's their second language, but um, what struck me with their journey is that, you know, they have been learning English for years. And in other nations, it's very common for English to be taught um, early on in students' lives. So by the time they're a teenager or a young adult, they have a functioning understanding of the language. Now, some of them, their fluency may come and go, but they have a functionality with the English language that allows them to communicate on some level, whether it's basic or intermediate, but they can maneuver and survive through some sort of English setting. And what really impressed me is that a lot of these students, they may or may not have considered themselves fluent. They may or may not have thought that their level of English was the best. But the fact that they had been consistently learning for so many years gave them a certain ownership over the language and a certain mastery of it that really just blew my mind. I it really put into context how far consistency can really go. Because I think, especially like being an adult learner, you always want to see yourself learning a language within a certain time frame. And I think that's how our minds operate as adults. We need to, when we start it, we need to have that finish, and we have to do it a certain way. Everything has to make sense, and we have to see it all happening because that's how our brains like it. And but the thing that impressed me the most with these students is that just the fact that they just kept moving forward, whether it was from sixth grade, seventh grade, I'm sorry, 6 years old, 7 years old, whether they sometimes some of them stopped along the way and then they started back up again. And by the time they made it to me in our lessons, they were doing really well. But I think they had a hard time giving themselves the credit for it because perhaps all their lives they had been looking to native speakers and feeling inferior, or feeling that they had not made it to the level that they should have been on, when in reality they were much further along than what they thought they were. So as an English teacher, to be talking to them and seeing their progress through all these years, and hearing their journeys, and how sometimes they stopped, sometimes they started, they stopped, they started, but nonetheless they just kind of kept going through it all. It brought them to a level of speaking and interacting and understanding me very well. So that's something to remember. No matter how you feel about your language learning skills, no matter how you rate yourself or whatever, if you just continue to move forward, you will. It's kind of like if you go and lay in the sun, you will get a tan. It will happen. There is no maybe I will, maybe I won't. You will get a tan. The sun is going to affect your skin one way or the other. There's no way around it, especially if you stay out there long enough. So learning a language is the same way. And I think as language learners, I think that's what we all panic about. We worry that we might be spending so much time and effort, and at the end of the day, we don't get what we want. And that's more of a psychological thing rather than something that's reality. And that's the down thing about dealing with our minds, because sometimes we can allow ourselves to just run ourselves crazy with just thoughts and things like that, and that's more psychological. It's not, that's you giving yourself a hard time, and just not giving yourself the credit that you deserve. So so definitely keep that in mind too. Keep in mind the psychological aspect of things, and that sometimes you have to just shut those thoughts up, and you have to remember the truth. The truth is that if you start and if you continue and go on and on and on and on and on, you will begin to speak, and you will begin to move in a level of fluency with the language. So I started off wanting to talk about practicing. I hope all these points came together to form something coherent, because I was not going off of a script. But I think you guys got what I was trying to say, and I think I'm done now. So guys, stay tuned. If you are enjoying the content, please make sure you like and subscribe. And I'm going to keep coming back with more content for you guys, all related to language learning and travel and lifestyle. So talk to you later. Hasta luego. Nos vemos.